Tales from the wild. Stories from the heart. A journey into the mind and soul of fired-up business professionals where they share their vision for the future. And hear from a different non-profit organization every month as they create awareness of their goals and their needs. Dive into a world of untamed passion as we join our host Shireen Botha for this month's episode of Friends from Wild Places.
All right, hi everybody, and welcome to the very first episode of Friends from Wild Places. I am Shireen once again, and I'm coming to you all the way from South Africa. This is a place where business owner professionals and entrepreneurs come from all over the world to reveal their wild hearts of business. This is a place where we're very authentic with one another, so I'm super excited. And since this is the first episode, just to give all the listeners out there a little bit of, and those that are watching on the YouTube channel, a little bit about me, and you'll have many chances every time an episode gets released of you getting to know me a little bit more every time. But just to start off, I have my own LLC business, a virtual bookkeeping business, which I started. I started this business officially once I was retrenched from the aviation industry. I was part of the aviation industry as a cabin controller for almost 11 years of my life. And due to the pandemic and all the aircrafts being grounded, I spent a lot of the time at home, moving back with my parents, reflecting on my life, really, and figuring out what I was going to do at the age of 36, where I was going to go, and also seriously thinking about, since I suffer a lot with anxiety and depression, the one thing that I was surrounded with being in the aviation industry is a lot of toxic environment. So I had to make a big choice of whether I was going to set myself free from that and just start afresh. It was very scary, and I can always get into that a little bit later. But during the course of me being a business owner for Shireen's Bookkeeping Services, and that's the name of my business, is I got involved in a global networking group called BNI. And I'm part of the chapter High Performance Referrals. That's the name of my chapter, which is situated in California, United States, and mostly servicing the Bay Area. I'm virtual, so I can pretty much be anyone's bookkeeper. It really doesn't matter. But that is my area. And also because my business is formed in California, so it made sense. And with networking, we meet new people every day. So one of my team members introduced me to this lovely lady here, who's going to be my co-host for today. So I just want to introduce an awesome welcome to Tanya Scotece. I hope I'm saying it right. I don't want to butcher anyone's names, but I'm excited to introduce her to you. She's from a BNI group called Synergy in Florida, and we kicked it off, and we've just been connected quite closely, and I'm so excited to share a little bit about her with you. So Tanya, would you please go ahead and just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thank you so much, Shireen, for inviting me to be part of this podcast. And it's just been an absolute pleasure getting to meet you and networking with you. And, it's funny in life sometimes how you just connect with people, right? It's truly about chemistry. And it's really fascinating how some people you just hit it off with and you like, and then others people's maybe not so much, you know. So I'm really honored to have the opportunity to speak with you this afternoon and share a little bit about me and collaborate some more in our ventures. So so my name is Tanya Scotece. I'm born and raised in Connecticut, Hartford, Connecticut, in the United States, and relocated to Florida back in 2006. And I was on the west coast of Florida. So as we know, Florida looks like a diving board. I was on the west coast from 2006, just about up to 2018. And then relocated to the East Coast, fall 2018. I had taken a job at Miami-Dade College. So I was a non-traditional student, you know, I just, ventured into a few marriages that didn't work out and that kind of stuff. And I finally decided at the age of 35 to start school for something that I had always wanted to do. And that was to be a funeral director. And so I went to mortuary school in Connecticut. And I was a single mom, and everyone that knew me thought I lost my mind. Like, why was I going to school? But I just had this calling, and I finished my degree there, and then moved to Florida with my family, and just stayed in school. And life, as I always say, sometimes puts you on a detour. And then I relocated to this coast of Florida when I took the job at Miami-Dade College teaching funeral services. So that's a little bit about me, and be more than happy to share anything else that any topic that we want to get into.
Well, that's awesome. And I definitely want to know why you got into that. What did it for you? What motivated you to get into something like that?
So in Connecticut, I had the opportunity. I was 12 years old. I was in 7th grade, in grammar school. And my mom picked me up and said, we are going to go to a funeral home. We're going to go visit. It was my mother's friend's mom. So I had no relationship to the deceased person. And in the United States, I know, Shireen, you and I have talked about different customs and traditions, but in the United States, typically, especially back then, it was a traditional wake where you go visit the deceased person, pay your respects. And so that's what I did. And it wasn't emotional because I didn't know the person. It wasn't like a relative or some, emotional connection. Right. So I went into the funeral home, and I was greeted by the men in black suits. And I looked up above me, and there was these beautiful chandeliers, like these beautiful beautiful lamps with lights and stuff. And to this day, I still always wear my beautiful earrings, something representing a chandelier, because I always say I want to take that piece of history with me. So wherever I'm going, I always have a little sparkle on to remind me of of that moment. And that moment just defined me. I went up to the casket where the woman was. I paid my respects. And I remember looking at my mom, and I was like this shy little girl, but I was like, can I touch her? And my mother's like, you're not supposed to touch the dead, just say a prayer and go sit back in your seat. And I was like, okay. So I just said the prayer, and I was like, I've never seen anything. It was beautiful. Like, she was beautiful. The dress was beautiful. The makeup was beautiful. And I didn't know what she felt like. Does she feel like wax? Does she feel like a mannequin? Does she feel real? Like, what is it? And no one told me. And so I went back in my seat, and then, I'm just sitting there and watching everybody do the same thing that I just did, except I don't think anybody else wanted to poke her. But, but then my mom said, I said to my mom, I see there's a man, and his name is on the other side of the funeral home. Can I go to that wake and pay my respects there? So my mother turned to me, and she's like, well, you're supposed to know the people and not just barge in on people's wakes. But she said, I don't know, somehow I convinced her that I was going to do it. And I did. I went by myself and paid my respects to this family. And I knew better than to ask anybody if I could poke the deceased. But I said the prayer, and I went back to my seat with my mom on the other side of the funeral home. And that moment, Shireen, literally has stayed with me my entire life. But I ended up working in the medical world 21 years, without any quote unquote formal education. I was kind of like a self-made office person, worked my way up. And, some people, have this, everyone's journey is different. And some people have a college experience right out of the gate for whatever reason, and other people don't. And some people never pursue academics, other people do. So it's not like it's a one size fits all. But I was 35, and out of the clear blue, I was working medical. I just decided I'm going to call a funeral home and find out what they do and what do I have to do to become one. And I found out a lot about the funeral directing world, and I immersed myself in it. But I didn't come from a background. In the United States, it's very common for people to take over a family business, because half of the businesses in the United States are privately owned. And, so it was just a fascinating way of how I got there. But I'm excited to share, anything, any details or anything, but that's it in a nutshell as far as how I got started in it.
I just have to say what you said about not doing it the conventional way, because a lot of people, they finish school, they go to college, they study, and then, A for away. Like, for example, accountants, or they normally go and do the 4-year college degree, and they come out and they become accountants, and that's, what they do. And for me, I didn't really do it the conventional way. I mean, I took a couple of years break. I went overseas as a camp counselor and an au pair. I went to an arts college because I had a passion for dancing. And then I came back from my overseas trips, and I realized, I can't be a gypsy for the rest of my life. I've got to actually adult now. And then I got into the aviation world for the 11 years of my life. And then here I've did the sideline bookkeeping thing. But so my bookkeeping went with courses that I did on the sideline while doing all that, not really taking it in seriously until the retrenchment happened, and then me coming to the realization of what am I actually going to do with my life that's going to put me in the place where I want to be and give me the best life that I would like, and so I didn't follow the conventional way of getting a 4-year degree, but instead I did, years later, decide to do a whole lot of courses on the sideline of my main job, and then get retrenched and decide to form a business in the US of A. So it's just everyone gets to wherever they are in a very different way and in their own way, and that shouldn't be judged. You know what I mean?
Right. It's such a fascinating story that you share, because, so many people, and I think, this pandemic, in my opinion, has really highlighted, a lot of things that I think warrant good discussion. And one is anxiety and depression. And I too, I have it, I have OCD. I talk about it in my classes, and, there's ways to use it to propel you, you know what I mean? Like, being a funeral director and having OCD is a phenomenal combination, because we're very meticulous about things that we're doing. So, but I think like our society, maybe now has maybe shed some light on these areas that people are feeling. But if you think about, it's almost like, what is normal? Like social media and everybody posting pictures of themselves, and, everyone has like the, like the family and the 2-parent household with their kids, and then the kids get older and then they get into grandkids. And it's like, what if you don't fit that mold? Like, where do you fit in society, or do you fit, or do you have to just like make your own, your own way? So I felt it a lot, because I didn't go to traditional school, and I didn't have the experience of like, leaving house at 18, or, and going off to a 4-year traditional college, knowing what I wanted. And some people that I went to school with, it seems like that's what they did. And I don't know, they're kind of probably living their best life, but
Right.
mine has been like a roller coaster ride. I mean, it's like buckle up and down. And I mean, I got more stories from my nursing home that I could share with anybody, and it's experiences that make it real. You know,
Right, I can
think
imagine.
that's what makes it real. And, but some people I think just live behind their, I don't want to say facade. I mean, you know, I'm happy for people that found it right out of the gate, you know,
Right.
and I always am happy for those folks and admire those folks. That wasn't my journey, so that I
Right.
can share with you, you know.
Exactly. Everyone has their own journeys. And with that, we all need to respect one another's journeys and know that I can never do what you're doing, and I could never have lived your life, and then vice versa. You could never have walked in my shoes and gone through what I've gone through, and then that will kind of leak into how we should really be just sharing love and respect in this world. There's just not enough of that. And we would have thought that the pandemic would have taught us that. And I think to a certain degree it has. But I also think that just after everything that's been going on in the world right now, especially with the war, and it's just, there's certain lessons that you would have thought humanity has learned from previous experiences, that would have known, okay, we've been down this road before, let's not do it again. Let's sit down, let's talk about it. But, you know, some people need to make that mistake 2 or 3 times.
I admire your field, Shireen, because numbers and myself, we're like, we do not go hand in hand. So I always admire, like, it's like you have a bookkeeping service and that's what you enjoy and that's passionate. It's like, wow, like that must be, you know, for you, like that is what inspires you. And maybe like, if you're looking at me saying, how does she do funerals, or how is that like something that brings her in joy or inspiration? And it does. And it's just funny when you try to look in somebody else's shoes, but as something as simple as understanding each other's work and occupation is even challenging. So then when you get on the subject of more, you know, maybe complex issues of anxiety or codependency or, you know, different hot topics right now, it is a fascinating world to kind of explore these different areas.
Right. It's just so interesting how, you know, everything comes into play to tell your story, you know. So I just wanted to find out as well from you, are you still working at funeral homes, or?
So when I landed the opportunity at Miami-Dade College teaching funeral services, I left the actual funeral home. So I'm no longer teaching funeral services. But through my BNI group in Hollywood, Florida, I'm in the Synergy chapter, as you mentioned. And what I've done is my dad was diagnosed with dementia, Lewy body dementia, a little over a year ago. And that's the kind that Robin Williams had. It's with hallucinations and things. And it has been quite the journey of a system that I knew nothing of. And I only knew of the word dementia. I mean, if I had to tell you at that time anything more, I could not even probably have an intelligent conversation about it.
Right.
Well, when you're immersed in it, it really, you know, sheds light on a lot of things that you don't know. So over the past year plus, with having my dad in a situation he could no longer live alone, had to find him in assisted living memory care, and navigating that system, I landed upon a company called Sunshine Senior Placement. And I joined Arnie's team. And it's funny because everyone that I've met through Arnie, they say, oh, you're one of Arnie's angels. And I kind of look back and I remember back in the day when I had a TV and I said, well, I always wanted to be Charlie's Angels. I guess that didn't work out. So I guess Arnie's Angels is where I am. So I'm like Cupid. I think of myself as Cupid, matching families with folks that can no longer live alone, or, you know, just looking for assisted living with the communities. So I'm like the matchmaker for people and communities, in addition to teaching at Miami-Dade College, where I teach funeral services. So that's where I spend my time. I still don't have a TV, so I have a lot of extra time. It's amazing if you give up TV, what you have a newfound 8 hours in the day to some degree.
Right, right. And, you know, I've told you this before. I find your road and your journey that you've taken is so interesting to me. And as I said before with you, that, you know, my father has Alzheimer's, which is under the umbrella of dementia. And so I can relate to you having a father with dementia. And my uncle also, he's passed away now, unfortunately, but he also had dementia. So I know exactly what it feels like to watch a loved one get taken slowly with that disease. So I respect what you do a lot.
Thank you. And another interesting, experience I will say that I've had, understanding my dad's journey is sometimes in life, when I reflect back on maybe certain situations, conversations, and times when maybe something was said that maybe at that time didn't seem right, now reflecting on it, I'm learning more about, when they call it like the brain misfiring. So even conversations with my dad, maybe 5 years ago, 10 years ago, when things were maybe a little off and you just kind of like chucked it up to, okay, he's having an off day or he's not in a good mood. But when you understand the disease, like the brain disease of the dementias, you really have more compassion. And when you spoke earlier about that love, to say maybe it wasn't him saying something or doing something, but rather the disease, because most people, I mean, yes, there's usually some crisis that ends up from somebody being quote unquote functioning to diagnosed, but there's a big gap in between. Right. So that gap in between is where we don't know. And it looks like our loved one, it talks like our loved one, it walks like our loved one, but yet there's something not quite right. Exactly. So I think by us understanding that or having discussions, but again, once you're immersed in situations, and it's the same thing when people lose a loved one that passed away, people are in crisis, and as I shared with you, worked oncology and cardiovascular for many years. People in crisis, you don't know where to turn. And there are resources out there, but how do you know where to find the resources if you don't know how to navigate? It's almost like what comes first, the chicken or the egg, Right, so right. These conversations, are real conversations, but people need to hear the words. And if they're ready to hear them, it makes sense. And I think that's why we go back to that chemistry thing where some people click and other people, you just don't click.
Right, right. I mean, I hear you loud and clear. I mean, my father, he wants to say things, and instead of saying happy birthday, he'll say Merry Christmas. Those little things, I respect you and what you're doing, because it's very hard to see a loved one get, slowly their mind disappears. It's very hard. And on saying that, I just wanted to say something that I've noticed with you is, and I really take my hat off to you, is everything that you've done in your life has come from a heartfelt experience like that when you were a child in the funeral home, that with your father, and seeing you struggling with your father to find the right home for him. I know you didn't mention too much of that, but I know the story, and it's just, I take my hat off to you, because not everyone follows careers like that. Like they have a really touching moment and they go, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life, or, for now, this is what I want to do. And then something else happens, and then something else gets ignited in you. And then you're like, this is what I'm going to do. And you've done that. And for me, that's amazing. And I look up to you, and I mean, I wish I could be more like that in a way. So thank you for sharing that with me. I really appreciate it. And
Thanks,
if
Shireen. It means a lot, but I think, I look to you with the same, respect and inspiration that you've shared your experiences. So it is a, it's a very collaborative, friendship that we have. One thing that I've learned many years ago, some people, and again, the words will only reach those who can listen, that can hear them, but some people chase a dollar. And I've never been one to chase a dollar, from the simple reason is a dollar can go very quickly and a dollar can come very quickly. And to really find passion is to really find something that is sustainable, whether or not you have money, don't have money, because when you can find your passion, money doesn't define you anymore.
exactly.
And it's such a hard, but not many people these words can reach, because so many people are caught up in, having whatever whatever it is, the houses, the cars, and things. And I'm not saying that that's not correct. I mean, everyone has their own journey, as you so eloquently mentioned.
Right.
But I really think by finding a passion or a purpose, and again, for me, I mean, I've been up, I've been down, I've been left, I've been right, and it doesn't define me. And I can have these open, frank conversations and say, you know what, it's like, I'm here, I'm still me. And there's times that, it wasn't so, up on the financial side. But, at the end of the day, it's like so many people get so caught up in whether it's a look or a job or a house or a car. And, you and I've had many, many heart-to-heart conversations. I mean, I don't take anxiety or depression lightly. As a funeral director trained, as a scholar, suicide is very real to me. I've worked too many families with it. So I really feel that awareness and talking about it and elaborating that just because somebody looks a certain way and, then you hear that they commit suicide, everyone's so shocked, like, oh, how they look like they had everything. How did they do it? So why are we shocked when somebody takes their own life? Because of what? Because they looked a certain way? Like we almost have to change our mindset, because it's not about a look. And I think that's where I think our society, and I'll speak, from the United States, I'm not that familiar with, where you are, but here it's just, people talk about awareness, but how many people are spending the time to actually have awareness type of conversations?
Right. I agree with you. It's a very good question to ask. Suicide is not, it needs to be, gosh, this is a little close to home. Yeah, it's a subject that we can speak for another hour on, and I'm happy to share. But I just wanted to ask you another question before we introduce someone else very special to the team here. I just want to ask you, what do you want people to know about what you do?
What I want people to know is that what people sometimes see, for example, like I have quite a big presence on LinkedIn. People see me as a professor, as an educator, and I'm as real as I am a human. And, we all have challenges and struggles. And that picture of the iceberg, when you see the tip of the iceberg, always resonates with me, because there's so much more behind the suit. That's a good phrase, right? Behind the suit. Okay. Right. So let's just start there, behind the suit. And, there are challenges and there are struggles. And when people have a presence to say everything looks good and acts good and is spoken good, what are the day-to-day? So I would want people to know that, I had a panic attack speaking to the International Cemetery Cremation Funeral Association with the executive board, full on panic attack. Certain things that I've just done and I look back on, and I never thought in that moment that I could speak about it and teach through it. And I share that story so openly with all of my students because they see me now, and we're still virtual with the pandemic at Miami-Dade College, and they just see that and they're like, oh, we're afraid of public speaking. I'm like, do not tell me about public speaking. I'll tell you a story about public speaking.
Yes.
So I don't want to say I haven't seen every struggle. Obviously our own journey is our own journey, but I think when people, if anybody wanted to get to know me or have an opportunity to, whatever information I could share to collaborate on, to help people, I truly want to inspire people about who they are and who they are becoming through their own evolution. So those are my words.
I love that. I really love that. Thank you so much, Tanya. And we will continue that thought about public speaking. But before we do, I just want to introduce everyone and all my listeners to a lovely lady. She's a CEO and Chief Heart Officer from Be Strong International. And she's actually waiting. And I'm very excited about this nonprofit. I always like to bring a nonprofit just to spread awareness. So let's welcome her. I'm super excited. Michelle, can you hear us, Michelle?
Yes, I am here. Hi.
Hello,
Oh, you look so beautiful.
Yes. Beautiful as always.
Oh, well, I just want to say welcome from all the listeners right now, from wherever they are watching on YouTube or from one of the podcast platforms. I just wanted to introduce you, Michelle. You're also part of BNI, and I think everyone's hearing this a common denominator, BNI. And quite frankly, yes, BNI is a fantastic international network when it comes to just growing your own business and growing your network. And it's not just about connection, it's about growing the connection. So I've been introduced to these lovely ladies, Tanya and Michelle, and it's growing my network, but it doesn't end there. It's how you build that connection and keep on building it. It's like you got to feed that baby and keep on feeding it, because the more you feed it, it may or may not give back to you, but most of the time it does. It ends up giving back, and you end up either making amazing friendships, amazing business relationships, amazing opportunities for your business to grow. So I'm excited. So welcome, Michelle. I'm going to let you just share a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Awesome. Well, again, thanks for having me. It's really exciting to be here with you all. And a little bit about myself, I would just say born and raised in Miami, Florida. I am the daughter to two immigrant parents. They came here from the island of Jamaica. And at that time, the borders were closing a little bit. They weren't giving out visas as much. And so my dad decided, you know what, this is my chance. I'm gonna come to the US and see if I can, settle here and make a good life. And he did, and he married my mom. And then of course I came along before, my sister and whatnot. But a lot of things happened in their relationship. And as I got older, I started to see some domestic violence, some things happened in the home that really weren't great. And so just as a young individual trying to process what was happening, whether or not my parents would stay together, where would I live with them, all of those things kind of just really were at the forefront of my mind. And it's tough as an elementary school kid going all the way into middle school, trying to figure out those things in your personal life while you're trying to study and, be a young person that wants to have fun and hang out with friends. In the back of your mind, you're struggling with all these things. And so, but I was resilient. And of course, along with my faith, I ended up graduating. I top 10% of my class. I went on to get a scholarship to University of Miami. But then still finding myself in situations where just not the greatest relationships, just not the greatest relationships. And so seeing this pattern happen, it was crazy. I ended up having to stay an extra year in college because of that. I met a counselor who basically finally said to me, listen, you are smart, but you're not going to get into anyone's school with these grades, because I was so distracted, so caught up in the wrong crowd, made a lot of poor decisions when I was in college. And at that moment, I just realized, oh my goodness, like, how did I get here? How did I get here? Like, I worked so hard for this. Like, what's happening? So I did turn it around. That was a pivotal moment for me, and I'm so thankful for her. And to be honest with you, I don't even know her name. I can't remember her name, but just a pivotal moment where she spoke into my life. And we all need those people and those moments to speak encouraging words into our lives. And here I am ever since. I ended up joining Be Strong after college and just really fell in love with it. And the founder was here at the time, and I just really clung to her, and she became a mentor to me, and that's how I ended up here at Be Strong. Yeah.
That's awesome. That is amazing. So tell us a little bit about Be Strong. What do you guys do there?
Yeah, so Be Strong, actually it's so funny. I don't know if you see bags under my eyes, I kind of got a hangover a little bit because we just celebrated our 30 years of being in existence, which is amazing, an amazing feat for a nonprofit, because it is tough. It is tough. The nonprofit world is very tough, very challenging, especially when it comes to funding and getting support and stakeholders to be, supportive of your mission. But what we do is we teach hard skills. Our goal is to move individuals and families from brokenness to wholeness. And we do that through healthy relationship education. So we serve all of the different target audiences: youth, parents, married couples. We just did a workshop today with community leaders, and it's all about how to effectively speak to them where they are, the areas where we see that people are on these negative patterns. They believe these lies, they believe these misconceptions about themselves, which causes them not to walk into their true purpose. We really want to target the broken family, and we know a lot of that stems from addiction, abuse, poor parenting, so many other factors that our world knows that these are high, really important topics that we need to figure out how do we solve them, the social issues that arise. But at the same time, the resources are not there, and it's not always a collaborative effort to get communities to change in these areas. And so that's what we want to move people to wholeness. And wholeness doesn't mean you're perfect. It just means that you now have the tools, you now have the resources to confront those issues and to put you on a better path to ending the cycle of trauma and poverty and all those things that we want to end. So
Right. I love that. I think it's so amazing. And one of the reasons I do this, and one of the big reasons I do this for this podcast, is every podcast I want to introduce one nonprofit to spread awareness and to let people know out there that if that is something that they can relate to, or know someone that are struggling with that specific thing, that they have something to reach out to. And I will continue doing this because it's my way of giving back. If I had a choice, I would rather be just fundraising and doing things and helping others and for the rest of my life without having to do any sort of job, if I could. But unfortunately, life's not like that. But I can do this. These are my ways. And then doing a fundraiser for my birthday, silly things like that. But these are my ways of trying to spread awareness and to helping others. So thank you very much for sharing that. And I just wanted to ask you, what do you want people listening to know?
You know, it's funny that you pose that question because I'm always in a position of, you know, soliciting people to give and to support us. But I would use this moment if you were to ask me, what do I want people to know? I want people to know that there is always hope.
Yes.
No matter what their background is, no matter even the current situation that they're in, as long as they are alive and they're
Right.
listening to us, they have breath in their body, which is a gift. You have the ability to change your circumstance. You really do. And it starts with your heart connecting to your mind, getting the knowledge that you need to make a change, confronting the real issues that at times people don't want to face, they don't want to deal with.
Right.
Being open and honest with yourself so that you can move forward and hopefully change a generation that's coming behind you.
Right.
Some who are listening have kids, some who are listening might be up in age. But wherever you are in life, there is hope. And that's what we choose to bring to the youth, the parents, the married couples, the families,
Exactly.
communities that we serve.
Right.
Yeah.
And to say something further about that is you're not alone, because I understand there's a point where you feel like you're alone and you're the only one that's struggling in that dark place, but you're actually not. And there's actually a lot of people out there that are maybe not the exact same scenario as you, but something very similar. And it might be very daunting to make that first move, but you won't regret it. You won't regret it. Just to reach out and ask for help. Because I don't know how you guys feel, but I feel like that's the biggest challenge when you're in that space, when you're in that darkness and that struggle, for you to go, okay, I mean, it's peer pressure, it's family pressure, you know, everybody like as well. It's to take that first step of saying, okay, I need help, and reaching out, picking up that phone. So
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think, you know, it's very easy for us to tell ourselves that lie, that we're alone.
Right.
And you'll be so surprised at the moment that you become vulnerable, someone will say, me too.
Yes.
I feel the same way. That's how the Me Too movement got started, you know, me too. You know, so I just, you know, it's a lie. It's something that we have to, you know, when we feel alone, we immediately isolate ourselves, and it's one of the most dangerous things that we could do. And then that's when depression starts to set in, hopelessness, many other factors. And, you know, there's a deeper level of even mental trauma that people go through as well. But to speak to someone who is really, really hurting, or they feel like they need to make a change in their lives, it really starts with telling someone else, you know, hey, like you, Shireen, I want to do a podcast and I want to help people, right? And you tell someone that knows someone, and this is how Tanya gets involved. Then Tanya reaches out to me, right? We're all connected, and I don't think we realize oftentimes how small, as much as big our world is, and you're in South Africa and I'm in Miami, right? COVID showed us how connected we could be really fast, really quickly, and gain so much traction. So there's hope.
Exactly. Yeah. On that, can people donate or volunteer to your NPO if they wanted to?
Yeah, so they can donate. They can visit our website. It's bestrongintl.org. We're on Instagram, we're on Facebook. I don't know if Facebook is as popular as it used to be, but Instagram seems to be hot. We are on LinkedIn, and they can follow us there. And all of those pages sort of will bring you to our donation page. Any gift is a blessing to us, because there are things that grants don't pay for, that we would love to cover. And do for the families. When COVID happened, we never stopped working. We had to partner with other families and really get them the food. There was so much food insecurity in it. So in some parts still is, right? The jobs that are available to skilled workers and things like that. It's a very competitive market now and so much happening, but we've been able to do a lot with the donor funds. So I would definitely encourage it and appreciate it so much.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. And it's the same spelling for your Facebook, for your LinkedIn, for all of that same spelling.
Okay. All Be Strong, IN as in Nancy TL, international, basically, short.
Okay. That's awesome. And yes, it is true. Tanya actually introduced me to you. So it just shows you how the full circle happens. One of my, chapter partners, they introduced me to Tanya, and then Tanya actually alerted me to you once I had spoken to her about my plan for the podcast. So it's true. It's the proof is in the pudding. So but yeah, I'm so happy. Thank you, Michelle, for sharing that. And I actually wanted to speak a little bit about Tanya's mentioned not so long ago before you arrived about public speaking. And how it's not doesn't come natural to me. I don't know if it comes naturally to you, Michelle, but I am a disaster when it comes to public speaking, and this Zoom gets me a little bit more confident, even though I still stutter, even though I still kind of have brain fogs and I lose my train of thoughts. I'm sweating underneath this table. Like no one can see that part of my legs are shaking like leaves. And I'm super nervous. But the one thing that I can give credit to is BNI, because if it wasn't for BNI and practicing the 45-second presentations every week, and then the 10-minute presentation slot every month or so, I'm getting used to it. But please, jump in, ladies, because I feel when it comes to public speaking, I will literally fall on my face. So this is fine, but put me on a stage in front of somewhat people. I will trip over my own self, and there'll be no going back. I'm terrible. I wish I was over exaggerating, but I'm actually really, really bad.
No, Tanya's a pro. I've seen her because we're in the same BNI group, and I'm just like, wow. And she's a professor, and she's funny, and I think, right, your experience, Tanya, helped you a lot, right?
But I've had I was sharing, I've had, meltdowns on public speaking forums, panic attacks. It's happened. Like I probably could write a book on all like the mishaps and things. But one thing, Shireen, that I will say, it's very interesting in, maybe a different conversation for a different time, but it's almost
go ahead. The table's now open, ladies.
Yeah.
This is now open for chatting.
Words that we speak, right? So like, as Michelle alluded to, and you alluded to, Shireen, like, I love the words hope has power, right? Hope has power is a motto that I live by. It worked for me when I was working an oncology office. It worked for me marketing a funeral home. Like those words, those 3 words, hope has power, can literally transform someone's life. And Michelle, you see that every day with Be Strong International, right?
Absolutely.
But I think it's very true, like the words that we speak. So when we believe that we can't do something, and we have that voice kind of like that, whatever that voice is, like judging us, you can't do it, you can't do it, you're this, you are speaking so eloquently, Ms. Shireen, like you are just beautifully spoken, you're eloquent. So we don't sit here saying, oh, Shireen looks nervous or is acting nervous, right, Michelle? She doesn't act nervous, she's not speaking to nothing. So we are our own worst critic. We are our worst critic. So I think, like through the Be Strong mission and through, different things that we can push ourselves in the direction of hope has power, because I know now I publicly speak often, every day. Sometimes, I mean, I'm on Zoom 12, 14 hours a day, many times per week. And if you told me that, like, you know, whatever, 5 years ago, I would have not believed you, because I didn't think I could do it. I had delivered a speech that I crafted, that I wrote, that I practiced, that I rehearsed, and I bombed, and it wasn't in the good sense of bombed. I mean, it was it was like a full-on like disaster. Okay.
Right.
Almost to the point, like, I'm like, if I didn't end up in emergency room for like lack of oxygen or something. But now I'm here before both of you beautiful women sharing my experience. So I've experienced it. So when people see me, like, Michelle, you only know me in this forum that I'm, I can speak and I can carry a conversation, but I've had those moments where it wasn't always like this.
Right.
And, so I think sometimes we all have those voices, the judges that, inside of us, that we can't, we shouldn't, we're not good enough, we're not fill in the blank enough, whatever that looks like. But I really think the words of hope has power has been a motto that I live by, and I try to live by. I teach through it. And I think it's all about evolving into a better human, into a better place, but by sharing the experiences. And not everybody has horrible, like, I mean, some people do, but, some people, it's just, maybe they just want to get from here to here, and that's a good step in the direction for them.
Right.
So sometimes it's almost like, just surrounding your people with who maybe you want to be like, and who is a good role model. But sometimes when we have what looks like a good role model is not a good role model, that's where you can kind of get stuck. And we have all gotten stuck. I mean, I've gotten stuck quite a few times, but I think the goal for all humans, for those that have an open awareness, is to try to do better, try to be better. And through that giving back, I think it really helps people that are in that stuck place at the moment.
Right. And to not give up. I mean, we all do. We go through hard times. And the fact that we're all admitting that we are our own worst enemy. I am, and I agree with you. I really don't need any help with bringing myself down. Who needs enemies when you have yourself? And I mean that with all respect. It can get tough up here, and just talking about it like this, there might be listeners out there that are feeling the same way, and then they're telling themselves, oh no, they can't start this business, they can't do this, they're not good enough to do this. But I mean, look at these two beautiful women, and look what they've done, what they've gone through, and where they are today. And I mean, both of you ladies have so many stories to share. And Michelle, specifically about how you got to your position in Be Strong. Would you like to share a little bit about that?
Sure. Interesting scenario. So I ended up working, I started the work in 2005 is when I got here. And around 2008, we had lost some really, really heavy funding that kind of toppled the agency a little bit. So it was a very scary time.
Right.
And there were a few of us who stayed back who said, you know what, we are just gonna struggle through this with the founder. We're going to, make this work, don't pay us, right? I consulted with my husband and I said, you know what, hey, I'll stay here for a while and see what happens, and we'll apply for some other funds and see if things will work out.
Right.
And then I got married in 2009. And then for 2 years, we were kind of just on this really slow path to nowhere. And it's just like, wow, nothing's letting up, nothing's happening. The funding, it seemed like it was getting worse. It seemed like we were going to be close to closing our doors. I think we only had one grant that would be paying, the rent, lights and so forth. And so I ended up getting pregnant. And that's when I'm like, oh.
Right. Michelle, I think we've lost Michelle here. Michelle, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes. Okay, we got
Yes,
you
I'm
back.
not sure what happened. Yeah, so I'm
So
sorry
you
about
felt
that.
pregnant.
So I got pregnant. Um, and at that time, I was trying to figure out what I was going to do now. Should I tell her that I need to look for employment? What do I do? And so I ended up, I'm a person of deep faith, so I ended up praying about it, and I ended up going on a 21-day sort of like no TV, no music. Social media was around then, so but no Facebook, nothing like that. And just wanted to kind of hear and be still and hear what I felt like what God was going to tell me to do next. And I did that for 21 days. And for 21 days, I ate certain foods and just did a whole cleansing, whatever you want to call it. And at the end of the 21st day, I wake up and it's like, oh, call your boss. Call your boss and tell her that you want to talk to her. So I call her and I say, hey, I want to set up a meeting with you. I've got some stuff to share. She's like, sure, fine. So we set up the meeting a couple days and I go to her and I walk her through sort of my journey in the 21 days. A lot of numbers, inspiration, what things meant. And the last part of it was to say, hey, I think it's time that you step down from the agency and that you let me take control of Be Strong and take it to where it needs to be. And I was scared to death because everyone in the community knew that. I mean, Be Strong was her baby. She wasn't going to let it go.
Right.
If anything, maybe she would go down with it. Who knows, right?
Right.
And she just said, I'm tired. Where do I sign? Because I'm done.
Wow.
And that was it. That was in April of 2012. And it's been an exciting, interesting, tear-filled, joyful ride ever since. But the board of directors voted me in, and that was it.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Just like that, huh? Well,
Beautiful journey, Michelle.
exactly. I just wanted to highlight that just to show the different ways and different journeys that we're all taking. Tanya, you and I were just talking about that. Being an owner of a business, starting your own business, being entrepreneurs, being, business women, we're all walking our own journey and we all get to where we should be in our own time. And I'm so grateful that I get, to listen to both your stories and your hearts, which is typical for women. I mean, we talk about our businesses at the same time we're talking about and sharing some really sensitive topics and some really great topics, which we could probably talk for hours on. And there's nothing wrong with that. But yeah, so I just wanted to just wind down and ask Tanya just for you to share with us, where can we find you if we want to chat to you, or if someone's listening and would like to find out more about your story with funeral homes and now just with the senior placement. You might inspire someone that's listening right now and they want to reach out and chat to you. Where can they find you?
Sure. So my phone number, which you're more than welcome to share, is my cell phone. It's United States area code 941-387-6485. You can also find me on WhatsApp. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, but I'm there also. I don't have a TV, but I do live on LinkedIn, so I have a big presence there. I'm on there a lot. So I would welcome somebody reaching out to me for whatever. If I can just inspire you and just maybe share something or dive a little deeper into something that I've shared with both of you today. If anybody has any more interest in finding out anything, whether it's mortuary related, my specific career, things that I've learned along the way, if I can spare anybody having a panic attack, I'd be more than happy to do that. And anything, my word, or we use in BNI, they say, what is your verb? And my verb is to inspire. I truly feel like that is my mission on earth. So I'm here to inspire all of the listeners out there in whatever that means for them.
Right. I love that. Thank you so much, Tanya. It's just so funny. I don't know why I'm just sitting here and I'm just thinking, you know, just before the pandemic, ladies, the first, what is the story time? Sorry, I'm going to flip quickly back to a story time, because what you said now was very interesting to me, Tanya, because on the 1st, 2020, which was shortly before the pandemic hit, I was doing my flights as per usual as a cabin crew member, and we had taken off and we had a fire on board.
Wow.
And the fire was from a passenger's bag. It was batteries of, you know, those e-cigarettes. And he had a whole lot of spare batteries, and he had just placed it in a Ziploc bag, put it in the bag, put it in the overhead storage, and for away. And I don't know if you know much about batteries, but if they're not placed correctly in a package, they can cause friction, and they can start building energy up between the 2 or 3 or 4 batteries, and it can cause a spark, and then a fire can begin. Now, I'm not going to go into the details of what happened, but on maybe it's a story for another day. But we took off and we were alerted to smoke by the passengers. And so I got the halon and put on the gloves, and I went and fought the fire. And I knew exactly where the fire was because I could see the flickering of the flames through the roof and where the stowage closed. And everything was fine. You know, we worked together as a team. They alerted the captain. The captain turned the aircraft around, and we landed back in Durban, South Africa. But I remember like it was yesterday, and how everything perfectly lined up. Meaning, if any of the factors were slightly different in any way, I would not be sitting with you ladies today.
Oh, wow.
So the fact that the bag was right in front of all the other bags instead of squashed behind any of the bags, to the point that I could see the flickering of the flames, and the fact that this bag didn't have a few minutes to burn into the back before any smoke was showing to the passengers, the fact that the passengers remained seated. Yes, they were screaming their lungs out, like blood curdling screams, but they all remained seated, which is very unusual for a full plane of all negative panic instead of positive panic, which is getting up hysterically and running just anywhere just to try and get away. But they all remained seated. I mean, there was so many factors that just lined up perfectly. And I remember once we had landed and I opened the door, and I just got this breath of fresh air, and I stepped out on the stairs and I just looked up, and I was just like, thank you, God. Like, I knew without a doubt that there was something else happening, and somebody else was working to protect every single passenger, every single crew member, and every pilot that was on board that aircraft. And that was the 1st, 2020, and the whole world went into lockdown in April. And when I stood on those stairs, I said, thank you, God. But then I also said to myself, well, can only get better from here, right? And then the pandemic happened. And then shortly after that, with just staying at home and, you know, things happening with the airline, the retrenchment happened with me. And then I started, you know, my bookkeeping business, Shireen's Bookkeeping Services. So everything just happened. And you know what? Everything happened the way it should. It wasn't fun and it wasn't easy. And I'm sure you both can say the same thing. None of the experiences were all beautiful experiences. Some of them are really hard, and some of them I will not wish on any single human being on this earth. I went through it, and that's enough. You know what I mean? But just to show you that everything happens for a reason, and you might not understand it now, but in a few years' time, you're going to look back and you're going to see, oh, see, I didn't give up then. I kept on going. Oh, look at me now. I'm CEO of a nonprofit named Be Strong. Or, you know, look at me. I'm doing what I love, and my new passion is, you know, placing seniors in homes, because I never want to see another father suffer the way my father did, because he couldn't find a home and no one wanted to take him. You know, it's just, you can look back now and see how far you've come. Yeah. And don't look in front and see how far you still got to go. That's not going to help you. You know what I mean? If you look back rather and go, well, you know, yeah, I might have a long way to go, but look how far I've come. And that's what should be your motivation. And I'm going to end it with that. Ladies, it was so awesome having you, Tanya, and Michelle. I have all the socials. I got your social, Tanya. Michelle, I've got all yours. And for those people that want to listen, please listen again. Next month, I'm going to make a next episode. You'll find it on all the platforms for podcasts, and you'll also find it on the YouTube channel. But if you want to find me personally, you can find me, Shireen Botha, on Facebook or Instagram, as well as LinkedIn. I've got my business page there on LinkedIn, Shireen Botha, Shireen's Bookkeeping Services. And then you're going to find this on the Friends from Wild Places YouTube. So you'll find us there too. But if you just want to reach out and chat, to me, you can find me on those networks, Facebook, Instagram. Believe it or not, I have a TikTok account as well. Don't judge me, ladies. It's a lot of fun. And it's a great way to actually motivate people and reach out to people as well. So thank you so much for listening, everybody. And we'll see you guys next time.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
You've been listening to Friends from Wild Places with Shireen Botha. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast from the links to catch every episode and unleash your passion.